anything light rail can do, bus service can do better, cheaper, and faster. So what's the point?
The Portland-Vancouver metro area is home to 1.9 million people. There is no doubt that a public transportation system is vital to this area. For over 30 years, TriMet has attempted to convince the public that light rail is the most efficient and cost-effective system. Professor Gerard Mildner explains why. He has a PhD in economics from New York University.
There's a concept which Peter Gordon at USC calls the Lionel complex, which is that all of us as young people, particularly young boys, grew up with train sets, and we think they're fun, and they are fun. And we'd like to, try to impose that kind of simplicity to the modern world. The actual commuting pattern is a lot more complex than a line like a light rail system can provide.
John Charles has been conducting field research on Portland's light rail system for over a decade.
I do understand the attraction people have for steel wheels on rail, but practically speaking, from day to day, the problem is all of us, we live, work, and recreate where there are roads.
You'll never be an engineer until you learn to handle your trains more carefully than that.
Who wants to be a railroad engineer? I'd rather be a racing driver with a car that can go places.
We're having approximately 6% of workers within the region getting to work by mass transit, and about 85% of workers getting from home to work by car, either through carpool or on their own. And so we're likely to have a much greater population driving our highways in the future, and we're doing very, very little to invest in it, and we're spending an awful lot of money right now investing in light rail. The first few lines that we built in Portland in some ways were the least objectionable. They're still quite high cost, but they often came with relatively inexpensive right-of-way. They often served communities which were more likely to use mass transit.
But now we have the Milwaukee Light Rail project at $205 million per mile, and the project over the Columbia River, if it ever gets built, will be roughly $321 million a mile. There is no transit project anywhere in the state, and probably anywhere in the country, that's worth that kind of money, because you could run far superior express bus service for 1,000th of that. You can take the nicest buses in the world, and they're only going to cost about $1 million.
TriMet claims light rail is fast, high-capacity transit. In reality, light rail is low capacity because it can only operate with 2 cars per train and makes frequent stops. Heavy rail, such as the New York City subway, is truly high capacity. It also has its own right-of-way, unlike light rail in Portland.
Portland Light Rail is low speed, low capacity, high cost, when what we need is high capacity, high speed, low cost. It's exactly backwards of what we need.
TriMet claims light rail is cheaper to operate than bus service. The truth is, the operation savings of light rail are swamped by the huge cost of building the light rail infrastructure. For safety reasons, light rail trains must be spaced at least 2 minutes apart. In comparison, buses can run seconds apart, even while traveling at high speeds. Buses use existing roadways, and routes can be changed anytime, anywhere, unlike light rail. Advocates of light rail claim new lines encourage new business development, when actually the development projects near MAX stations are highly subsidized. Light rail actually discourages development. For example, the Blue Line to Gresham has been open for 26 years. Where is the thriving development along this corridor? A Fred Meyer was once in operation here next to the Blue Line, but because of high crime rates and blight, the store was demolished.
My view is there are no success stories for transit-oriented development in Portland. Without the subsidies, without the mandates, you would have very little development. TriMet and Metro and the other proponents should stop trying to politically sell light rail as a catalyst for mixed-use development. It's not a catalyst, it actually repels it.
I think as we go to the second line, the third line, the fifth line, the seventh line, what we're increasingly doing is moving these transit systems into locations where they're less likely to be transit users. They're typically higher income, and so you're having to spend a lot of money to go after people who've got a lot of options in life. They're increasingly being used to go down corridors where we're having to remove road capacity in order to satisfy the need for right-of-way which these systems have. And increasingly, in order to justify them, the proponents are having to argue that there's going to be all this spin-off development, whether it's office building or commercial development or employment. So when projects are proposed, they're not necessarily being proposed from the point of view of trying to solve transportation problems and to provide additional infrastructure for commuters to use, but they're really viewed as systems to try to appeal to the heartstrings of federal legislators.
TriMet's history shows they cancel bus service whenever new light rail lines are opened, forcing riders to take the train. As a result, their light rail ridership data becomes artificially inflated.
Government has a monopoly on our road system. They're not improving mobility, they're trying to dampen mobility. Mobility has a direct connection, a very direct relationship to economic health in a region. And when you reduce mobility, you reduce that economic health. Seattle, they told voters in 1996 that they would serve about 100,000 trips per day for about $3.9 billion. Fast forward to today, and costs are approaching $20 billion, and they're only moving about 30 to 35,000 trips per day. So very different than what they promised voters. And I think residents here can expect that same sort of result. That light rail is going to be way more expensive than what they were promised, and it's going to carry fewer people than what they were told as well. So what that means is you have the potential of light rail soaking up all of the available transportation money in this region, right? Tax money is finite, and you have to spend it in the right places that have the biggest impact. And if you're moving very few people on a system that costs a lot of money, that's the very definition of inefficiency. Meanwhile, leaving everything else that carries 90 to 95% of the rest of us to languish.
So we should just stop, admit it didn't work in Seattle, it's not working in Portland, and move to a rubber-tired, road-based transit system that at least has a chance of providing people the service they want at a price we can afford.
In some ways, the light rail lines that we've built have been kind of a signature for Portland, much in the way, say, the Gateway Arch is a signature for St. Louis. It's what St. Louis is known for, and so maybe what we're known for here in Portland is our light rail system. But I think that St. Louis had the common sense to build one Gateway Arch and stop, and not build 3 or 4 or 5. And I think we should do the same with respect to light rail.
It would be nice if people could learn from the 26-year experience of light rail in Portland. Decision makers in this region don't want to learn. They're all in, they have their story, and they're sticking to it. They are unwilling to admit that it didn't work out the way they wanted, but having been a light rail commuter, recognizing that it has fatal flaws and the flaws can't be solved, my recommendation, certainly for people in Vancouver and people in far southwest Portland, where there might be more lines coming, is to look at the experience and recognize that anything light rail can do, bus service can do better, cheaper, and faster. And there's no shame in making a mistake. The only shame is in repeating the mistake over and over and over with public money that our officials are charged with managing wisely. But the only way for citizens to be heard, I believe, is probably through a local ballot box.